RPN Radio Philippines Network. Radyo Ronda.
D-Triple X Zamboanga.
Kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
The country logs a little over 2,000 new COVID-19 infections. This is the lowest single-day increase since the beginning of the year. Around 72,300 are active cases, the majority with mild symptoms. 5 laboratories did not submit data. Nearly 6,300 others recovered. 52 died. The Philippines is now classified as low risk for COVID-19. During a televised cabinet meeting, Health Secretary Francisco Duque said the reclassification was made after the nation logged a negative 74% growth rate in cases from February 1 to 14 compared to January 18 to 31. Duque told CNN Philippines the capital region may de-escalate to alert level 1 in the first week of March.
It started to drop the number of cases, but we have to be mindful of the importance of adherence to minimum public health standards. If the safety seal certification is up to par by Thursday, hopefully by first week of March, baka pwede na tayo mag-de-escalate to alert level 1.
Based on the health department's projections, if compliance to health protocols are sustained, cases nationwide could go down to only 83 a day and only less than 20 a day in Metro Manila by March 15. Otherwise, daily cases could reach anywhere between 2,000 to 7,700 nationwide and 162 to over 1,000 in Metro Manila.
Kapag tayo ay magkakaroon ng pagluwag nung pagsunod natin sa minimum public health standards at hindi masyado nagko-comply ang ating populasyon, maaring tumaas uli lahat ng ating kaso. Because it is election time, it is campaign period, nananawagan po tayo sa ating mga kababayan, sa ating pong local officials at sa ating mga kandidato na sana po tayo lahat ay tulong-tulong para po mapanatili nating mababa ang kaso sa bansa by complying with all the safety protocols that we have issued through our guidelines.
In the meantime, the DOH says only 4 regions remain at moderate risk. These are the Cordillera Administrative Region, Western Visayas, the Davao Region, and Soc-Sargen. There is no guarantee the COVID-19 pandemic will be over before President Duterte's term ends. Malacanang says the administration is now working on the National Action Plan Phase 5. This outlines the next steps against COVID-19 and focuses on protecting the community while accelerating economic growth.
Yang document po na yan, plus all the accomplishments in terms of vaccination rate, in terms of compliance with the safety seal, in terms of compliance with minimum public health standards sa mga establishmento, lahat po yan ang aming ito-turn over sa next administration.
The government admits even vote buying may now go cashless. That's why this early, the country's anti-money laundering agency or council is asking banks to keep an eye out on dirty cash online. Our senior correspondent Lois Calderon has more.
As the campaign picks up speed ahead of the May elections, banking regulators are raising a red flag. From the Bangko Sentral to the Anti-Money Laundering Council or AMLAC, the warning was for voters. Do not sell your votes. For those buying votes, we can hunt you down even if you go high-tech. That's because the battlefield has widened to the digital space. But even transactions over GCash and PayMaya can leave a footprint. So regulators and the dirty money watchdog can trace big-time vote buying and selling.
There is an audit trail because electronic money issuers such as PayMaya and GCash are covered persons, and they are obligated to file covered and suspicious transaction reports. And whenever there is an investigation by the AMLC, we can also require them to present transaction.
The AMLAC explains that while the threshold amount that could make a digital transaction over GCash and PayMaya look suspicious is above 500,000 pesos, that trigger is not the only red flag.
One circumstance for filing a suspicious transaction is deviation from the profile of the customer. So, for instance, monthly, they only transfer funds in their GCash accounts, for instance, 100,000 pesos. But now they exceed that threshold amount. So that could be a trigger.
Poll watchdogs like the PPCRV also ban voters at precincts from taking photos of their ballots, which often are used as proof for those who sold their vote.
Hindi pinapayagan sa loob ng voting precinct or ng polling precinct na kukunan mo ng retrato yung balota mo. Kaya i-report namin agad sa Board of Election Tellers, doon sa mga namamahala sa voting. Kailangan i-report agad ng poll watcher para malagay sa minutes, malagay sa record.
The extent of vote buying this early is not yet clear.
Kasi di naman nabibili yung boto ko eh.
It's much better na i-block na lang natin mga ganung bagay.
Now, even NBI's Cybercrime Division admits it is challenging to classify if an act constitutes vote buying.
Titingnan mo sa mechanism, halimbawa nagpadala ng 500 or 2,000, di ba ma'am, hindi yun, parang legitimate lang yun.
Oo.
So walang out of pattern na makikita.
The Bangko Sentral and AMLAC urge the public to report suspected digital vote buying or selling to the police and NBI via their hotlines. Lois Calderon, CNN, Philippines.
At least 4 candidates will face off in a presidential debate hosted by the network of embattled religious leader Apollo Kibuloy. Ernesto Abella and Norberto Gonzalez are also joining Sunshine Media Network International, or SMNI's, debate tonight. Bongbong Marcos and Leody de Guzman earlier confirmed their attendance. Manny Pacquiao and Ping Lacson rejected the invitation. Pacquiao flagged Kibuloy's child sex trafficking charges in the United States, while Lacson cited the pastor's endorsement of Marcos. Both Isko Moreno and Lenny Robredo also skipping the event due to scheduled visits to provinces. Now, if you'd like to see most of the candidates to debate, join us on February 26th and the 27th at 5 p.m. The vice presidential and presidential debates live at the University of Santo Tomas, only here on CNN Philippines.
The highest office of the land.
Unedited, unfiltered, coming soon.
A CNN Philippines special presentation, The Filipino Votes 2022 Presidential Debate. When we come back, we revisit the situation in Siargao Island months after the wrath of Typhoon Odette. And amid the threat of an invasion by Russian forces, only 8 of almost 400 Filipinos in Ukraine want to return to the country. Details after this short break. Welcome back to CNN Philippines. The groups behind the junked disqualification cases against presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos appealed before the Commission on Elections and Bank to reverse the First Division's ruling. Lawyers of the Akbayan party list and the campaign against the return of the Marcoses and martial law, or KARMA, filed their respective motions for reconsideration today after Abubakar Mangelen. All three petitioners insist Marcos's failure to file income tax returns from 1982 to 1985 is a crime involving moral turpitude or against good behavior. Akbayan also wants decision writer or the ponente, Amy Ferolino, Comelec Commissioner Amy Ferolino, not to take part in the en banc's review, as the group questioned why only 2 commissioners made the resolution. Comelec's internal rules allow it.
The participation of Commissioner Ferolino will further stain the process na meron ngayon. It will create and cast more doubts in this process.
Marcos's team told petitioners the Comelec's First Division's ruling was clear and insisted they should stop filing cases that are supposedly filled with lies. Here's a look at what other presidential candidates are up to. Senator Ping Lacson and his running mate Tito Soto have not dropped former Vice President Jojo Binay and re-electionist Dick Gordon from their senatorial slate. Lacson said the two continue to honor their so-called gentleman's agreement not to endorse other candidates. The tandem had earlier removed Senator Win Gatchalian and former Quezon City Mayor Herbert Bautista from its lineup. But Soto notes he and Lacson have yet to decide if they will endorse Binay and Gordon. The Senate president says the tandem has already endorsed 11 senatorial candidates. The team of Senator Manny Pacquiao has filed a motion for reconsideration after the Makati City Prosecutor's Office junked his 100 million peso cyber libel complaint against embattled Pastor Apollo Kibuloy. But Pacquiao's lawyer says his camp is also considering withdrawing their appeal so the FBI, or the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, can properly facilitate the arrest and extradition of Kibuloy. The pastor faces sex trafficking charges in the U.S. Pacquiao sued him last year after he alleged the center had misused government funds for the construction of the Sarangani Sports Training Center. Vice President Leni Robredo got a warm welcome from the city of Rojas in Capiz today. The province gave Robredo a landslide victory in 2016 with more than 209,000 votes against Marcos. And Manila Mayor Isko Moreno vows to build more houses, hospitals, and schools in the entire Samar Island. One of the world's best surfing spots is again welcoming tourists, but Siargao is still reeling from Typhoon Odette, with many businesses struggling to rebuild and recover. Chrissy Di Matulak takes us to this world-class island.
At this time of year, the island of Siargao would have been teeming with tourists. But after Typhoon Odette's wrath last December, residents and business owners say the once vibrant island is almost unrecognizable. Presco, a lodging place and restaurant in General Luna, has yet to open its doors to guests. Odette left the establishment in ruins and now needs a complete overhaul. But despite the considerable repair cost, Presco manager Noni Ongcoco says they are not giving up on the place.
Andun yung strong hope sa amin na to bring back the beauty na ng Siargao na everyone expects and everyone will be in. And gusto namin siyang maging motivation for us to be strong kasi it is actually very hard for a lot of people. The trauma is very hard, not only the Typhoon Odette, pero yung aftermath no na you lost everything.
Siargao residents have yet to get back on their feet as they struggle to rebuild their homes. Avelina Note says she has started installing a new roof after the typhoon tore away the previous one.
Pag bagyo ng Odette, nagpa-check up kami sa Surigao City. Tapos dito kami inabutan sa Surigao City. Ngayon sa tinitirahan ko, tanggal lahat ng bubong. Nang umuwi ako sa Siargao, sa Dapa, tanggal din ang bahay namin. Pero sa ngayon, unti-unti kami nakakabangon.
Dr. Romina Rosillon sa Hulga, General Luna's assistant to the mayor, says the island is on the road to recovery. But she knows it will take time.
We still need roofing for the houses of the people because we are still on the stage of rebuilding homes. So roofing, yung mga plywood, yung mga nail, more on construction materials.
She hopes come summertime, tourists will flock back to the surfing mecca. Local officials and residents admit that the island's vibe now isn't what it used to be. They say they will forever be left scarred by Typhoon Odette. But they remain optimistic that Siargao will bounce back. Siargaonons are still in need of assistance. Those who want to reach out can contact the numbers displayed on your screen. Chrissy De Matulak, CNN Philippines.
As business owners in Siargao pick up the pieces, drivers and operators face a different struggle, the non-stop rise in fuel prices. The Trade Department says the impact on consumer goods has yet to be seen, but as Amor Santos reports, a number of factors are pushing food prices up.
Tricycle driver Fortunato Nolasco used to bring home up to 800 pesos after a day's work. With the pandemic and rising fuel prices, it's now down to more or less 300 pesos.
Madaling araw pa ako namamasada, ma'am. Alas 5, alas 4, gising na ako, naliligo ako. Pag alas 5, maalis na po ako ng bahay. Hiniling ko lang po, bumaba para sa aming mga driver.
Drivers like Fortunato bear the brunt as oil prices go up for the 7th straight week. Some consumers suspect it's now pushing food prices up.
Siguro dahil sa yung gasolina nga ganyan. Parang ripple effect kasi yan eh.
Hindi pa naman kasi yung distribution cost where they need fuel is only maximum of 5% among the oil component, cost component for the production ng manufactured food products.
A check at the market shows price increases for food items like cooking oil, flour, sugar, and canned goods.
Kasi dati itong mantika namin, ito 100 lang. Ngayon halos 150 din na. 150 ang isang ganito. Ang tubo lang namin 3 piso, 5 piso. Bote pa 3 piso.
The Trade Department says these price increases are fueled by various other factors, including movements in the international market.
Kung flour ang dahilan, kasi alam natin na tumaas ang flour last year pa yan as early as March last year. So, hindi fuel ang reason ng increase ng presyo ng tinapay. Tapos yung cooking oil, it's the palm oil na imported vegetable oil, iba-iba yan eh.
The agency assures the public any price increase has to be evaluated and approved by the government.
Depende sa ibibigay na reason and justification ng manufacturer sa atin because we also study them and make sure na kung aapekto man, makaka-apekto man, maliit lang, very minimal. The consumers can rest assured that we are always on top of the prices.
For consumers, whatever the reason may be, price hikes mean less food on the table.
Budget na lang din po. Kahit konti lang mo yung namin budget talaga.
Talagang ganun. Tipid-tipid muna, ganun. Sasabihan mo na yung mga suki mo, kate, baka magtaas tayo ng piso bukas, ganun. Parang di sila nabibigla sa pagtaas ng produkto namin.
Amor Santos, CNN Philippines.
The palace says it can also provide fuel subsidy to qualified drivers and even to farmers and fisherfolk, but some conditions must be met. President Duterte inaugurates a vital road project in Muntinlupa today. The South Luzon Expressway Elevated Extension Project in Alabang aims to ease traffic in areas south of the National Capital Region. The major link funded by San Miguel Corporation is a 3-lane elevated expressway spanning nearly 4 kilometers.
I am personally excited to see the outcome of this expansion project, which is expected to promote greater mobility, help ease traffic, and redound to the economic growth and productivity in Metro Manila and its surrounding areas.
SMC President and CEO Ramon Ang earlier said the highway can accommodate an additional 4,500 vehicles per hour. In global headlines, the United States still hoping for a diplomatic resolution as it continues to monitor Russian forces at the Ukraine border. The White House says it remains open to engage in diplomacy if Russia chooses to quote, engage constructively, unquote. The U.S. evacuated its citizens and its diplomatic personnel in Kiev amid fears of a Russian invasion. A spokesperson for the Kremlin says Russian President Vladimir Putin is still, quote, willing to negotiate. U.S. President Joe Biden has warned of swift and severe costs if Russia invades Ukraine. The Ukrainian government also vowing to exhaust all diplomatic channels as it braces for a possible attack from Russia tomorrow. But despite the threat, only a handful of Filipinos in Ukraine have expressed their intention to come back home. Tristan Odalo has this report.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling for peace and unity in the wake of reports that Russia may attack Ukraine at any time. In a video message, the Ukrainian leader says they were told that February 16 will be the day of the attack. Zelensky says his government won't be cowed by the threat of a military invasion. His spokesperson later clarified that the February 16 attack date actually came from U.S. intelligence reports cited by Western media outlets. American officials nonetheless insist that a Russian invasion is imminent. But for Filipinos living in Ukraine, there's no sense of panic among them as of now.
Yung sitwasyon naman po namin dito, okay naman po kami, tahimik. Wala po kaming nararamdamang tension.
She adds the Philippine Embassy constantly communicates with them and started opening up the registration for those who intend to go back to the Philippines. But out of the 380 Filipinos in Ukraine, only a handful expressed interest so far.
So narinig ko 8 Pilipino, pero yung ano doon, yung anak nila, asawa nila, pinagsasubmit nga nila kami ng mga name list namin kung sino yung mga decided na magbabalik ng Pilipinas. Repatriation, sinasabi nga. Pero mostly kaming mga OFW, we are all undecided at siguro nga hindi kami uuwi talaga.
The OFW adds that most of them would rather stay in Ukraine than go home and face more uncertainty.
Hirap eh. Babalik ka ng Pilipinas, kung nga ka din lang naman, di much better na maghihirap ka din lang sa Pilipinas, di maghirap ka na din lang sa ibang bansa, at least kumikita ka pa ng dollar.
Labor Chief Silvestre Bello says majority of Filipinos in Ukraine are employed as teachers, call center agents, office workers, chefs, or housekeeping personnel. Some Filipinos say their employers have obtained visas for them to another country in case they need to flee Ukraine. Other OFWs meanwhile have secured entry visas from neighboring countries rather than go back to the Philippines. Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
Veteran broadcaster Ricardo Dong Puno Jr. has died. He was 76. His family said Puno succumbed to a lingering illness. Puno, who was also a lawyer, served as press secretary during the Estrada administration. He became known for various news programs such as Dong Puno Live, Viewpoint, and Insider.
Sure ka ba talaga dito?
Welcome back to Newsnight. People at Expo 2020 Dubai last weekend got a taste of Pinoy rock for Philippine National Day. Singer-songwriter Bamboo performed on the World Expo's Jubilee stage. The musician talked about the importance of joining the global event celebrating Filipino traditions.
Music is, as you know, is sort of like it's big in our culture, right? It's something that's done from karaoke joints, the clubs, to wherever. Music's, I guess, what I'm here for is a little of, we're back, right? Like lighting that firecracker, we are back.
At the event, Bamboo sang OPM favorites like Kisap Mata and Himala from his former band, River Maya. Another Filipino making waves in the global scene, becoming only the second Asian American to score an Oscar nomination for hair and makeup. Lady Gaga's hairstylist, Frederick Aspiras, was nominated for creating the star's looks in House of Gucci. The Filipino-Vietnamese wig designer told CNN Philippines about how his 15 years of working with the chart-topping singer began.
One day I got a phone call from my agent and said that there's this rising, emerging artist by the name of Lady Gaga. And she, I said, oh, I just saw her on the, VMAs bleeding to death on stage. And I was like, wow, she's kind of like our new Bowie. I didn't expect the type of success or what would come out of it. I just wanted to work with such an interesting artist. And so when we started working together, slowly we just started to realize that, we both share the same kind of mindset when it came to creating art.
Aspiras adds it took him 6 months to do research and finish wigs for Lady Gaga's character, Patrizia Reggiani. Movie fans can also get in on the action this Oscars award season with these new fan-voted categories. Now anyone can vote for a 2021 movie to win the title. Just use the hashtag #OscarsFanFavorite on Twitter between now and March 3. Fans can also vote for their favorite movie scene using the hashtag OscarsCheerMoment. The award ceremony will air live from Hollywood's Dolby Theatre March 28, 9 a.m. Philippine time. And that is it for tonight. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. and on Politics as usual at 8:30 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
From presidential spokesperson to President Ernie Abella is looking to be elected to the highest post in the land as he runs as an independent candidate. He hopes to bring a so-called new Philippines under his leadership. We get up close with Mr. Abella to talk about his platform. Thank you, sir, for joining us on The Final Word.
Thank you for inviting Rico.
Sir, the backbone of your platforms are based on 3 pillars: a fair society, a government that is felt by the people, and a strong nation. What will be your immediate actions to achieve these pillars if you become president?
Okay, there are at least 3 things that we'd like to give attention to. But first and foremost, let's say we will continue. We will continue with the past socioeconomic agenda of the current administration. But over and on top of that, we want to include these 3 things. Number 1 is the close participation of civil society, so that they can overlook, they can act as watchdogs, they can act as to look after projects and policies that need to be implemented. Secondly, of course, what we call yung gobyernong nararamdaman. No? The first one was patas na lipunan. The second one is gobyernong nararamdaman. Our major flagship here would be the Agri Powerhouse. The Agri Powerhouse, we'd like to set up first a board of agricultural investments and to make sure that the agricultural industry, which has practically about 23 to 26 million people who are below poverty level, and includes also about 12.5 million people who go to bed hungry every night, which is what we'd like to give attention to give a focus on, that after 6 years, the whole this 12.5 million Filipinos who go to bed hungry at night would be eradicated and they would be living a much better life. Thirdly, of course, is the Matatag na Bayan. Matatag na Bayan is basically, we understand that the focus or the strength of a resilient nation is its people. And you would like to be able to raise up what you'd call a national volunteer corps, equivalent, for example, to the Peace Corps, but this would have a domestic function, helping out building communities, helping in the big task of nation building by, for example, helping out in primary and secondary students to gain mastery in reading, writing, arithmetic, helping disaster hit areas, and of course to be able to help build a more confident national identity. So three of them, Rico, patas na lipunan, gobyernong nararamdaman, matatag na bayan.
Comprehensive platform, Mr. Abella, if you indeed become president. But on your first day in office, what will be your first executive order that will integrate all of these three pillars?
Well, we'd like to be able to establish, for example, the first executive order would be to set up, of course, what they call the Board of Agriculture Investments, of course, and to meet with and to be able to mobilize, for example, mobilize the greater activity of civil society and, of course, the aspect of volunteer corps. So we'd like to be able to put that in executive, to be able to activate that as soon as possible.
And of course, we just saw the recent jobless numbers. It has increased in the month of December, and they expect the numbers to get worse in the first months of 2022. And the agri sector is the one that has already been hurt the most. So how do you plan to create more jobs? How do you plan to boost the economy in your first 6 months in office?
Of course, it would deeply help, if, for example, the reopening of the schools, that would open doors for MSMEs. The other one is to, of course, the activation, like you just announced earlier, the reopening of the tourism industry and also the hospitality industry. It would greatly help in giving, in bringing back the jobs that we lost over the past 2 years. So the activation of tourism, the hospitality industry, the opening of schools wherever there is a low COVID incidence area, and of course to create a National Recovery and Resilience Council, an NRRC, to be headed, of course, by NEDA, assisted by an advisory committee of a private sector to manage trade-offs between job creation and social protection.
Mr. Abella, over the past few years, corruption has been front and center in this administration. And over the past decade, it has been a systemic problem in our bureaucracy. If you become president, how should we fight corruption?
Like I said earlier, one of the first things that we'll be signing into office, is the activation of civil society. This is going to be another aspect of our administration, because one of the things that we've realized is that it shouldn't just be on the shoulders of the president. It should be a shared responsibility, a shared responsibility wherein civil society actually participates in local government units in order to be able to look after the administration of financial funds. For example, local job creation, the tendering of pre-qualification bids. There needs to be an extra eye looking after the government day-to-day activities on the local level, because the president cannot be overseeing all of those areas, but we need to be able, I keep calling it a rebalancing.
Right.
If a rebalancing of power where you have government, big business, and other related activities there, but it needs to be rebalanced by a very active civil society.
Yes.
Aside from that, of course, we need to, we also want to be able to implement institutional changes, institutional reforms, among other things, randomized testing for randomized audits for institutions of interest.
But Mr. Abella, if civil society tells you that several of your cabinet secretaries are corrupt, will you fire them and will you put them behind bars?
Rico, that's a very interesting question, but that brings up another aspect of what you'd like to do. I'm not going to be, what do you call it? I'm not going to be relying solely on people that I know or are close to me. But actually, what we're going to do is we're going to have a very strict vetting program based on three things. Number one, the cabinet secretary should have the intelligence and skill. Number two, and number three is that they will have the energy to do that. But number one is they need to have integrity, and that means to say that they'll be strictly vetted. And but having said that, that they go through a strict vetting process, we will also, if you ask, will we put them in jail? If proven guilty, they will have to face the law. They will have to face the law.
And being the former spokesperson of President Duterte, will you reappoint if you go through this vetting process that they are qualified? Will you reappoint or recycle Duterte officials if you become president?
If they fit the job, we could. But also everything goes through a vetting process. Everything goes through a strict vetting process.
Let's now take a look at the war on drugs. How should the government fight this war? Your previous boss adopted an ironclad, no-nonsense, anti-drug policy. Will you do the same?
Correct. Ganito. For example, I appreciate this vision, which is number one, a comfortable life for all, which is based on inclusive prosperity, and secondly, an orderly society, which includes anti-crime, anti-corruption, and anti-drugs. Now, in essence, we would still adopt the same principle that drugs are a menace to society. However, what we would like to do is to do it, the way he carried on, of course, is according to his governance style. But we would continue the same anti-drug campaign by implementing it in a manner that is more quiet, less dramatic, and but is equally firm.
On the form of government, during this administration, there have been attempts to shift from the current form to federalism. But the Duterte administration has been unsuccessful. If you become president, would you want us to be a federal-run government?
Well, there are how do you put it? There are advantages. If you look at Germany, for example, they had an excellent leader who stayed for 18 years. But of course, that in 6 years, he can only achieve so much. However, what we would like to do is maybe take steps incrementally and maybe begin with the party reform, reforming the party system first.
Mr. Abella, surveys are showing more familiar names leading the presidential race.
Yes.
You're up against longtime political personalities. This will be an uphill battle for you.
It is.
And are you willing to stand down and support a winnable candidate? Or will you fight it out till the very end?
Let's put it this way. The reason why I'm here is because I have a vision and I believe I know where to bring the whole nation to. It's not a question of supporting just this person or that person just for winnability. I'm fighting for a vision. I'm standing for a vision, and I believe that it can be achieved.
And what will be your priority bills for Congress to pass if you become president?
Again, the whole aspect of supporting the agribusiness, of course, supporting, making sure, for example, that we become an agricultural powerhouse, and then that would be a major priority to And of course, that would include renewable energy and also encouraging the arts and entertainment industry to become a marketing arm and for the export industry. So we would like to be able to pass laws that will give better support to these areas, for example, tourism, arts and entertainment, and renewable energy.
Presidential candidate Ernie Abella, we will be right back with you for our up-close conversation, and we'll also give you the latest on Tony Gonzaga, who is still the talk of the town after a controversial hosting stint. Some celebrities took to social media to express their disappointment. Keep it right here on CNN Philippines. News you can use, news you can trust. This is the final word on CNN Philippines. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rico Hizon. Mr. Abella, we would now like you to ask you several questions, and please only give us a yes or a no answer. Here's the first question, Mr. Abella. If you become president, will you make it mandatory for yourself, the vice president, the cabinet, and members of Congress to reveal to the public their statement of assets, liabilities, and net worth, or SALIN?
Yes.
Will you allow the International Criminal Court to investigate President Duterte?
No, for the plain and simple reason that our courts work.
Do you support lifting foreign ownership limits in the Constitution?
Say that again?
Will you,
Do I support?
Will you allow or will you support lifting foreign ownership limits in the Constitution, wherein you will call for a constitutional convention?
Yeah, right. Not 100%.
Do you favor the reimposition of the death penalty for drug-related crimes?
Yes, for drug-related crimes, heinous crimes.
Do you favor resuming peace talks with communist rebels?
No, they should be done on the local level.
Will you allow joint oil exploration in the West Philippine Sea?
Business to business, yes.
Should the country be more aggressive in protecting its maritime rights in the West Philippine Sea, particularly against China?
It should be active in protecting our rights, whether it's China or any other power.
And finally, Mr. Abella, your final word to our kababayans on why you should be elected as the next president of the Philippines.
I believe that the Philippines has a call and a destiny, and that we could begin an actual Philippine century, Siglo Pilipino. If only we'd learn to embrace our responsibility and work, and we can have a continuous, if we could have a continuous journey together, evolving into a righteous, peaceful, and joyful nation, we can have what I call a century of Philippines rising. It is a vision that we can achieve, and it's a vision that we can all together work for. There is no need for despair. If we get our act together, we can fulfill our dreams.
Thank you very much for joining us on The Final Word, presidential candidate Ernie Abella.